Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. A good day when we have my longtime friend and colleague in the studio with us, and that is Deacon Jim Vargas. He's the president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages. Always warms my heart when you're in the studio, my good friend.
Good to be with you. It's always good to be with you.
I appreciate that. And you brought one of your colleagues, Paul Delessio.
I did.
He is the director of coordinated services. How you doing, Paul?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Doing great.
Oh, that's terrific. How long have you been involved with Father Joe's?
24 years now.
24 years.
I usually say I started in January.
Okay, very, very, very good. So tell me what the role is of coordinated services. What does that do?
I'm basically a social worker down at the village. I work in all of the frontline services. So our outreach department, our assessment center, our Neil Good Day Center, which is a wonderful program right downtown, and then two of our shelters, one co-located at Veterans Village of San Diego, and then our new RISE program, which is at our PMC downtown. Right. So you're juggling a lot of things, I take it, correct? Wonderfully, yes. It's a wonderful
Spinning
place
plates.
to be.
Yes, yeah. No, I think that's terrific. You know, Jim, we were just chatting before the show, and of course, the listeners know that you're a frequent guest on the Spotlight Show, which we're honored to have you on. We always appreciate you giving up some of your time. Listeners know that you and I have known each other for quite a while.
28 years.
28 years, my goodness.
We met at the age of 2.
And when Jim's one of these guys, you know, I'm sure you already figure out, Paul, never ages. He looks.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, he looked this age 28 years ago. No, I'm just kidding. He
had more hair and it was not as white.
No, it's all great. Listen, you can't go a day without reading something about the homeless and so forth. And you've been just such a supporter of all these sometimes very tough decisions people have to make, you especially on this. But talk about, did you just do a point in time count?
We did just do a point in time count. And when I say we the community.
That's right.
It was spearheaded by the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, as it always is. It's an annual count. And it happens towards the end of January, each and every single year. And it's an important count because it allows us to do a few things. See how we're doing on a relative basis year to year, as far as those who are on the streets, especially different populations of those who are on the streets, of different demographics, different age groups and the like. And it also is the number that's utilized in order to receive funding, especially funding from HUD in Washington. And so it's an important count. It is just that, a point-in-time count. No one would attest to the fact that it's 100% accurate. Last year, the number was 10,605 individuals, right? And that's 1,500 individuals, by the way, who canvass the entire county in order to be able to come up with that number. The methodology is the same. From year to year, you can get on a relative basis, see how we're trending. But we also know that during the same period of time, about 30,000 individuals touch the homeless services system in one fashion or another. So it's just at a point in time count.
Do other cities do point in time, or
They do. Major cities, I think the requirement is that it be done every couple of years. We chose years and years ago to do it on a yearly basis because it helps us.
Right.
But major cities, in order to receive funding from HUD, you have to do a count.
Right. And what do the numbers look from this year to from last year?
Well, it's hard to tell. The numbers, they literally, and Paul can attest to that, having gone out yesterday and tell you some stories, but we won't get the results of that until probably 3-4 months from now. But I will say that last year's count went up from the prior year's count, right? And what we're seeing a lot, Drew, is we're seeing these baby boomers who are aging out. Right? I mean, you and I are baby boomers, right? And we're reaching an age. You and I have stability. Some would argue that, but some level of stability, financial stability. Right. But there are others who actually, don't have enough for retirement.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing. What you're seeing, a growing trend more seniors falling onto the streets, which is very tragic.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think we've talked about this quite a bit. The changing face of those that are in need, those that are food insecure, very different than it was maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And exactly on this, and the seniors are the biggest growing group on it. What major changes, I'll start with you on this, Paul, and then pivot over to you, Deacon Jim, have you seen in the world of homelessness and how people look at homelessness, how people accept homelessness, how people don't accept homelessness? And I mean, that probably a 15-hour response could not even come close to answering those questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's actually a wonderful question, and it makes you really think back and are able to focus in on the clients in the present and then what we need for the future. So, thinking about that over the last couple of days, and definitely when I was out on the street yesterday, 4 a.m., with our clients outside, people really haven't changed. People still have the same barriers, the same need. People have the same compassion, and people have the same hope. When I started back in 2001, I was working at a emergency shelter for families in a partially condemned building, ironically now where the Housing Commission sits. And I remember the need. I remember one mom who was so depressed she could hardly get out of bed, and her daughter would sit at the curtain and try to grab kids as they went by to play with. And then the compassion, we had a woman named Grandma who would sit and a lot of kids had lice, as all kids do.
Right.
And she would comb oil through their hair and get the lice out and treat people for lice and just that. And she would sing to them while she did it. And it was an absolutely wonderful person. And then the hope. We had a mom at that shelter who got dentures and came back and just smiled and smiled and smiled. And I didn't realize the impact until she said, this means I can go to school functions with my kid and not be embarrassed. And I can go to interviews and not be embarrassed. And so those three things I think are the same of what even I saw last night. I was just telling Deacon a story about this one woman we were outside with, and she was recruiting people to come over and talk to us, at 4 a.m. And she finally brought her boyfriend over to me, and she just stood there embracing him, as he answered questions, and he was struggling a little bit, and she just stood there embracing him. So that compassion that a lot of people have, and we definitely saw the need yesterday, and a little bit of hope also. So people haven't changed, but what has changed is the environment that we're in. Number one, with housing. The affordable housing crisis has impacted us incredibly, impacted our clients incredibly, impacted everybody to live in San Diego incredibly. Everybody's feeling that crunch, and also the inflation. And then, fentanyl has impacted our clients, and now xylazine has impacted our clients incredibly. We're losing a lot of people. And the work we have to do to keep people alive has been significant. And then the changes in laws have impacted our clients quite a bit. Things change in social work. As we always learn, they shift, indoor help, outdoor help, deserving poor, undeserving poor. These things have always shifted back and forth. And usually when we're kind of in the middle, things work out the best. And I think Deacon works very hard to keep Father Joe's in the middle, providing hope for clients and also understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. We're chatting with Paul Delessio. He is the Director of Coordinated Services, Father Joe's Villages, joined by his colleague, Deacon Jim Vargas, President and CEO of the organization. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of just doing phenomenal work in San Diego County, whether it's with the homeless or whether it's with food insecurity or literacy and so forth. Very thankful for the great work they do. And, Jim, you're spot on. Paul, you're spot on. Jim, that's Jim. He's going to meet you, where he needs to meet you. Very forthright, honest as the day is long, and then we'll tell you when he disagrees with you. I think I told you this, Jim, did a great video after Newsom had come out with one of his policies and said, tell us how we're going to go ahead and do that without any resources. And listen, we all want to, work very closely together in this. But I ask you this question all the time, and, it's always good to take a temperature on it. Are the attitudes of, and you've always been very sensitive to the people that certainly have businesses and have homes near, where some of the major hotspots of homelessness is, and you are sensitive to that. Are their attitudes changing at all? Are they starting to understand more, being a little more sympathetic, empathetic, or not?
Well, I think it crosses a spectrum. I think you have those who, yes, are very sympathetic and compassionate and understanding, and then but recognize, and I recognize that there's frustration also.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes fear.
Right.
I mean, if you live near where there are encampments, as an example,
Sure.
and you have to take your child to school, there can be some fear there as well.
Right.
I always say, and you've heard me say this before, that the work we do at Father Joe's Villages, yes, helps those who we serve directly. But in so doing, we're helping the community as a whole to become healthier. And that's what it's all about, because it isn't just those who we're serving at Father Joe's Villages. The reality is that in lifting them up and making sure that they have the training that they need, so they have the marketable skills, we can help them secure employment, and then they can have income and self-sufficiency. That strengthens the community as a whole. I mean, they become productive members of our community, our society. These are, as Paul mentioned, these are individuals who have aspirations as well. I mean, when they were born and they were held in the arms of their parents, the aspirations of their parents wasn't that they be homeless, right? I mean, they wanted the best for them as well. And these are, and so we find that in tapping their potential and reinstilling that hope, it's incredible what they're able to achieve. Right. And so yes, we work with the community at large. We work with those who we serve. And as Paul mentioned, the situation with those who are on the streets has changed. The needs, I should say, have changed. And what we're known for, and I'm really, really proud of the team, or the passionate team that we have at Father Joe's Villages, is that we respond to the need at any given time. And mine is a business background. That's and right. If you don't assess the market, right, and respond to that market, you're not going to be in business very long. It's kind of the same type of situation here. You have to really assess the market. What are the needs at any given time? For instance, and I've shared this with you, Drew, for what's been weighing in my heart for a number of years now, is that I see people cycling in and out of shelters, not only our own shelters, but other shelters in general. And we're not getting, as a community, to the fundamental problem, substance use, as an example. Yeah, and we know that a third to 40% of those who are homeless have some level of substance use challenges. And so at the beginning of last year, that's it. We made it a point to say, we're going to tackle this. All right. In the entire county, there's 78 substance use beds. Think about it. It's only 2 of which are in the city of San Diego, CalAIM type of beds. And so we're going to be adding, I always say, with God's help and to His glory, April 1st, we're going to be adding 44 detox beds. Wow. And it's going to be a 14-day intensive and inpatient and intensive program. And then we just started, Paul mentioned the RISE program. This is a new program that just started January 1st, 248 sober living recovery beds. Right? And recognition that there isn't a one-size-fits-all. There's certain individuals who want sobriety, who need sobriety. It'll be a recovery bed station as well for those coming out of our detox center. So, and it's so uniquely positioned within our village because our federally qualified health center is there, our meals are there, case management is there, employment services, everything they need in order to really lift them up, not only for the substance use, but also from their many other challenges. So it's again, how can you be a catalyst for change? How can you assess the situation and respond to it? Why, Drew? So we can be most effective in their lives and we can efficiently use the precious dollars that we have, whether they're public or otherwise.
No, you're a great steward of that money as well. When we come back from a break, we're going to continue the conversation with Deacon Jim Vargas, President and CEO of Father Joe's Villages, and his colleague Paul Delessio, Director of Coordinated Services. I want you to chat about the person you wrote about on your questionnaire about Tony and hope and his story. Paul had mentioned hope. It's such a big part of what really we all need in whatever we are in life in this aspect of it. Let's talk about that. And certainly, Jim, whatever we can do, Certainly money turns lights on, helps with more beds, helps with more, treatment. I know psychiatry is something that you've stepped up the plate. How do you not talk about mental health? You're talking about homeless and all that business. And then, Paul, the same thing to you. What can our folks do? Work with your street teams or whatever the case may be, which is something we've highlighted as well when we return with our friends from Father Joe's Villages. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We're the nation's longest-running community podcast. Now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, from literacy to homeless to food insecurity, the arts. They are all over the place, joined by Deacon Jim Vargas, President and CEO, Father Joe's Villages, and Paul Delessio, Director of Coordinated Services. So we are going to maybe bypass Tony, but we have other stories to talk about, different folks. You mentioned Amber, did you not?
Oh, Amber, yeah. And Tony, and there's David, and there's Michelle, and they're listed. There's so many stories that we can share. And people ask me, sometimes they tell me, Deacon, don't you get overwhelmed? Don't you wonder whether it's even worth the effort because situations are just getting worse? And, it's an interesting question because I never do. There's no time to be overwhelmed, right? And I think of all the miracles that happen, and that's what keeps me revved. I think that's what keeps Paul revved as well, because there's so many people who we see conquer this situation and go forward. But Amber is just one of many. Amber is someone who, frankly, she was in the throes of addiction. This was a number of years ago, and it happened that her husband had contracted cancer. He succumbed to the cancer. That put her on a downward spiral. She wound up on the street. She had 2 little girls. She lost the girls to CPS, all right? And they were taken away, and she was just using substances. And at one point, she and her aunt, side by side, OD'd. And she was brought back through Narcan.
Wow.
Not so lucky for her aunt, right, who died in the situation. But that was kind of almost the beginning of discovering Father Joe's Villages and our many services. And she got help with the substance use. Her children, she was able to, I'm fast forwarding at this point, it took months and months and months, but she was able to go through our employment center, graduated with property management, became a property manager. Her children were restored to her. They thrived in our therapeutic childcare center. And she is, I'm just so proud of her. She's doing so well, and she speaks so eloquently about her experiences, so much so that we're going to invite her to serve on our board.
That's a great story.
It is really a great story. Yeah, and she's a wonderful woman. She humbles me, actually, how she was able to lift herself up. And so, anyway, I'm very proud of Amber. So proud of so many other people as well. We have so many stories we can share.
Yeah, talk a little about, the street teams that you have, or the street care, the folks that go on the street and are out there. They go out every day? Is there Talk about that, Paul.
So we have two types of outreach. We have our medical outreach,
right.
That's through our federally qualified clinic. And then we have our street outreach that goes out and works with people specifically around the East Village. Father Joe was always really big at meeting people where they were at. His favorite service was our lunch line. So we do lunch 7 days a week for the community. And one of the reasons he liked that, not only because we believe in that everybody deserves the humanitarian services, but also a step up out of homelessness at the same time. So we can meet people there because it draws them in. One of our most powerful outreach aspects is our day center, the Neil Good Day Center. We partner with the city on and the Housing Commission. And the Neil Good Day Center offers all those humanitarian services, laundry, showers, a bathroom, respite to be inside when it's cold or hot, and storage. And the most popular one, they'd be really mad at me if I don't mention this one, mail, which is our most popular service. All of those things draw in clients, especially clients that are chronically homeless, that have been outside for quite a long time, and allow us to build relationships with people to help them out of homelessness. Deacon mentioned the RISE program. I'll tell you there are two stories about RISE and then another program we have. So we just started our RISE program, and one of the case managers came and was like, oh, my client's really struggling. It's a sober program, but it's an empowerment program, really at its core. And when we interviewed our clients that were living in our low barrier program, 70% said they wanted to live there. And one of my case managers came and said, hey, he said he wants to live there, but he's really struggling with alcohol. And I said, but that's the magic of the RISE program. Even if he goes and can't keep the sober aspect, we're just going to work with him, then get into another low barrier shelter. He doesn't go to the street, but he's got the hope that this is what I want. This is what I want in my life. And then he can come back at any time. And so it's not just about the success in the moment. It's about planting that seed. Once I had a client tell me, angry at me, that we cursed him. The curse of the village. Oh, you cursed me. The curse of the village. And I said, the curse of the village, are we haunted? I didn't know that. It's an old building, but... And he said, no, I was on the street and I was okay with it. I came in for a little bit and I didn't, I went back out, but now I want to come back in. It's not okay to be on the street anymore. You cursed me. And that power and that's what we're looking for, is creating that hope in life. Deacon mentioned, our STEPS program, our employment education services. We had a client that went to culinary arts, which I think is one of the greatest things. Every reality show is about culinary arts. And so you put that jacket on, you get instant respect. And he had gone to, it just started, and he had gone to a catering event at a very wealthy house in La Jolla. And he showed up and he had been homeless for quite some time, and he expected that it was a charity event. He was going to sit down and be taken care of. And as soon as he walked in the door, the host said, you got to get to work. You got to do this and this and this and this. And they started running around. And he came back just in shock. And he said, the most powerful thing for me at this experience wasn't the work. It was that I had a place there and I was important. I was important there. I wasn't just given things, but I had a mission. And if it wasn't for me, that event wouldn't happen. And so, like you mentioned, the power of hope is the most powerful thing we can have in helping people off the streets.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Jim, I know you think about this only 365, 24/7. So if there was a 25-hour day, you'd be thinking it for 25 hours. And if you were able to wave a magic wand and poof, here comes, all of these affordable places. It's a housing thing. You and I talk about it. There's other stuff too. Yes, I understand that. But, we just don't have enough housing in this. Are we making any progress in this in some of these areas, maybe parking lots or maybe, trailers or something to the event? Are we making any inroads?
Well, any unit that we add is progress, as far as I'm concerned, right?
That's right.
And yet, are we anywhere near where we need to be? Absolutely not. Whether it's be affordable housing or shelter beds themselves, we just don't have enough shelter beds, right? So, but on the affordable housing side, we have our Turning the Key initiative for Father Joe's Villages, and we committed to building out 2,000 affordable housing units. And we're well on our way. We had our St. Teresa of Calcutta Villa, which we opened a couple of years ago, almost 3 years now, 407 units. Benson Place, a motel we purchased and refurbished, spanking 83 new units. We have 5 more buildings in the pipeline now. I don't know if I've mentioned that to you, right? And 2 of them we hope to break ground this year, and then another one next year, and we're staggering them, and we're looking at other possibilities, right? I mean, just these 5 buildings themselves will add another 600 or so units, and so it's little by little you chip away at it. I do have to tell you, we've mentioned this before, it's very onerous and costly to build in this town. Exactly. It really is. It takes forever, permitting and entitlement, and then gathering up the funds, right? But if you don't get started, you never get to the finish line, right? Right. And it's important. It's an important element because that's what breaks the cycle of homelessness. Yes, we do all this other work, and it's very necessary. But at the end of the day, we need to have housing. Otherwise, the system just remains clogged. Right.
And one of the questions you and I have talked about as long as you've 10 years. Still can't believe you had the job for 10 years. That's fantastic. Hopefully you're going to be there another 10 and maybe even longer.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's such a valuable asset. I think Paul would vote for that. There's a big absolute yes on his aspect of it. But it's something we talk about, the absolute misperception that a significant amount of the folks that are homeless want to be on the street, and which is so not true. And I tell this to people, and they go, "You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, there's a lot of things I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. They do not want to be on the street. You'll find some cases, we get it, but that's not even close to the majority."
No, and in fact, Paul knows firsthand because of his outreach teams, right? And we see time and time again, people don't want to be on the streets. It's harsh to be on the street. I've never been on the streets, but can you imagine? Especially right now when it's so cold at night, it's harsh to be on the street. What people want and need is diversity in choices. That's right. The key, right? And that's what we hear all the time. So that when we hear that maybe people are claustrophobic, and maybe they suffer from anxiety, maybe they're victims of domestic violence, right? Well, then we have to be conscious of that, and because we have to take that into consideration in placements, right? So that congregate settings may not be the right environment for them. It doesn't mean they want to be on the street, but they have these special needs, let's say, right, that need to be tended. But the reality is that people do want off the streets, and as Paul mentioned, it's an opportunity to start working with individuals, building relationships, right? So those individuals who are ready for sober living, we have it. That's great. And those individuals who are quite not there, like Paul mentioned, well, we have low barrier. And we don't want to leave you on the streets either, because in the last number of years, there have been more and more deaths on the streets, and the majority of which have been because of drug overdoses, especially as a result of fentanyl. We're losing our people on the streets, so we have to help them stay alive.
Yeah. Well, I've said that. I've quoted you on. I always give credit for this quote. Drew, if they're dead, I can't help them. Okay.
I've said that. That's right.
Well, it's true. I would rather sit there and get them where we can be in a position to help them. But if they're gone, we can't. That sounds obvious and trite, but it's true. And that's why you folks have those different programs. What I'd love to do, next time you're on, can Amber come on and talk about?
I'd love to have Amber with me. Absolutely.
Let's bring Amber on that board, and I'd love to bring in a neighbor, a business down there that really embraces what you guys do, okay, and says, "Hey, listen, they're working very hard. I know it's not easy, but they have my interest in mind. I run, Jim Vargas's, piano shop over here, whatever the case may be." And really hear from a business down there, because you always hear the negative. Businesses hate to see these folks down here, which is not true. And maybe you can bring Amber on and a business. What do you think?
Okay, I love it.
Okay, we'll consider that. I'll start with you, Paul, then we'll pivot over to Deacon Jim. Any final comments?
We had a campaign years ago called Be Father Joe. Now I think it's Be Deacon Vargas.
I don't know if there's a Be Deacon Vargas campaign, but okay.
Did you hand out Deacon Vargas masks?
And it was really focused that all we are as a nonprofit is a group of people who got together and have our various talents, all very important, to solve a specific issue that's happening and help people to help people get off the street. And with that, as you mentioned, people have different views on homelessness.
That's right.
The people that are outside. And so what I do is to invite people down to be Deacon Vargas, be Father Joe. And the most powerful thing you can do to really understand the clients that we have is to come down and just volunteer with us for a little bit. And I think it would surprise people, no matter what they think, have one view, because every one of our clients is unique. And we see that with every volunteer, that when the first person they meet, they think, oh, this person is an exception to my view. This person's an exception. And that goes on and on and on until they figure out that everybody's exceptional. So come on down and volunteer with us and be Father Joe and be Deacon Vargas.
No, I think that's great. Jim, any final comments?
Well, there's also be Paul Delessio, right? Of course. But I would say, your listeners and those in San Diego, they are such staunch supporters of what we do. I see it time and time again through volunteering. For sure, we have 5,000 volunteers. We were blessed with 5,000 volunteers last year, which is really great. Helping in various areas. We have our thrift stores. And people who donate, and you've Drew, I know our truck has been by your home.
I'm going to be giving you a call later today.
Right.
I need you guys to come back in and take out half my house.
So. We have trucks that go out, right?
I know you do.
And furniture and automobiles and the like that people donate, and we either sell them at our thrift stores, all right, or at auction houses. But all the proceeds go to the services at Father Joe's Villages, right? So you can donate. Yeah. You can also buy at these thrift stores, because really very great merchandise at reduced prices as well. And then there's people who leave us in their estates, and remember Father Joe's Villages in the estates, so it's their legacy in a sense that they're leaving behind. And then just philanthropy. I mentioned that detox center and the sober living center. That's all philanthropically funded, by the way. So we needed $1.5 million in order to renovate 2 floors to be able to accommodate this and repurpose those floors. And we said, we're going to do it. I remember our CFO at the time. I love our CFO. And he said, Deacon, we don't have the money in the bank. And I said to him at the time, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Paul, but I said to him, God has lots of money. His name is Jason. And Jason said to me, yes, but it's not in our bank. Okay. So I said to him, don't worry about it. People love what we do. They see the impact that we have on those who we serve, and they're going to step up. And you know what? They did. And we were able to achieve the $1.5 million to be able to renovate. Now going forward, all these beds are going to be philanthropically funded, right? And so, does it keep me up at night somewhat? Yeah, it does, I guess. But in the end, I really do have faith that the dollars will be there. Why? Because they have to be there. Because this work is absolutely critical. We're doing God's work, and we're making a difference in people's lives. And it just has to happen. How can it not happen, right? So philanthropy is extremely important. So I appreciate your listeners and those who support us in San Diego, because the reality is that the vast majority of our budget is philanthropically oriented.
Yeah, well, we'll get Amber on. We'll get a business on that, you're right, actually, that supports what you're doing. And as you know, and I know Charles Parisi, the founder and CEO of Cloudcast, feels the same. We cannot shout out this enough. You cannot talk about this enough. It's always good seeing you, Jim.
A pleasure.
We'll look forward to having you back on sooner than later. And Paul, another fine person that works with Jim. He brings in just a whole laundry list of people like you that care about humans and care about humanity. Heaven forbid we had 330 million people thinking this way in this country. It would be a little bit different, wouldn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. Wishing you nothing but great success in all those new initiatives you have, and looking forward to your return appearance, Jim.
Thank you, Drew. God bless you.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Listen to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 years of doing great things in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.